Alright, dodge and burning is an amazing edit technique that allows you to selectively brighten and darken specific areas so you can really bring that extra dimensionality and oomph to your images. But you know from experience that dodging and burning is also an area where a lot of photographers tend to stumble and end up with natural looking results. Hi everyone, what's going on? I'm Andrea and I'm a professional travel and landscape photographer. In today's video I'm gonna walk you through 3 very critical mistakes that people make when it comes to dodging and burning and how to fix them. So why do we dodge and burn? Dodging and burning is a very localized and controlled way to add contrast to the shot in a painterly and more artistic approach. Dodging is all about brightening things up, and while burning is about darkening them. Dodging and burning allows us to shape the light into something more ideal by lightening or darkening specific areas in the image. This helps to diminish distracting elements in the landscape on a micro level, and then on a macro level it's more to create depth in your image, draw attention to key elements, shape the visual path we want viewers' eye to go down, and create artistic effects by manipulating lights and shadow. Okay, mistake number 1 people make when dodging and burning. This is something I've rarely seen discussed, and that's how to set the exposure parameters. Let's say we want to darken some areas in this image. The foreground, for example, is way too bright and it takes a lot of attention. So we need to darken it a little bit. I'm going to select the brush tool. Then we usually set the exposure as a negative value, let's say about -1. And I'm also going to lower the flow and opacity a little. Then we're going to paint over the area we want to darken, like so. Now, can you see what the issue is here? That's why I'm not a big fan of using just the exposure slider to set the brightness level for dodging and burning. As you can see, it reduces the local contrast in a not very organic way. We also have a weird color shifting that looks terrible. Sure, we could fix it in some way by adjusting the temperature and tint and other controls on the basic panel, but that takes more time messing with sliders. Okay, here is my personal way to solve this issue. What I like to use to set the brightness level is the curve tool. And let me show you why. First, I'm gonna click on the curve and drag it down, like that. And then I'm gonna start painting over the lower area of the frame and darken it. Let me show you the 2 versions. In this one, I put the exposure slider to -1, and in this other one, I've used the curve tool. Notice how the version with the curve tool allows us to darken the foreground without compromising local contrast or causing any color shifting. It might seem like a small difference, but as you can see, it can have a significant impact on the final results. I love that. Of course, you can experiment with both and see which one delivers the result you enjoy the most. Always remember to use a low flow and apply the effect incrementally. By working with lower flow and opacity settings, you can really build up the desired effect gradually, layer by layer. This helps to create smoother and more natural looking transitions between the adjusted and non-adjusted area, avoiding harsh tonal shifts. By the way, if you want to receive cool photo tips like this directly into your email, you can subscribe to my weekly newsletter, which I send out every Thursday. It's completely free, and you will also receive a free ebook featuring my 4-step framework to instantly improve your compositions. And if you love traveling and want to improve your photography and editing skills at a deeper, more personalized level, you can join me in one of my photography workshops in wonderful locations. So you can look in the video description for the link to the workshops page and get more information there. I'd love to have you join us. Mistake number 2, ignoring color discoloration. This is another very common mistake when dodging and burning, and that's how it influences the color of the area we're going to adjust. Here we have got an image capture in the Faroe Islands, lit with a beautiful side light. Here I want to emphasize the contrast and add a bit more dimension in this shot. So I'm gonna grab the brush tool, I'm gonna adjust the curve for dodging, and I'm gonna start painting right over this area, like so. There is a problem though. Let's switch the adjustments off and on. The area adjusted is clearly brighter as expected. However, we are also noticing a sort of discoloration. When we lighten an area, we effectively reduce its saturation, and that can make colors look dull or discolored when compared to the rest of the image, like in this example. Now, how can we fix this color shifting? Most people tend to simply tweak the temperature and the tint sliders or boost the saturation, and sometimes those adjustments work out just fine. An effective method to prevent color discoloration when dodging in Lightroom is to incorporate a color layering technique that closely matches the existing tones in the area you intend to dodge. This approach somewhat emulates how I typically dodge and burn in Photoshop. For example, if you are dodging a warm area like in this example, you might choose a yellowish color here on the color setting, so it's going to warm up the color temperature just enough to maintain the natural warmth and avoid an unwanted color discoloration. And the effect is quite different than just tweaking the temperature slider. To select the proper hue, you just need to hold down click on the color panel and move the eyedropper tool over the part of the image you want to sample the color. So let's select the grass here, right there, and maybe I could select a slightly warmer hue. And I'm going to also increase the saturation a bit more. All right. So what's going to happen when we paint this is it's naturally going to brighten with that color. It's going to work in the brightness, but we also influence the color a little bit and add extra saturation. Something I usually do on dodge layers is add an extra control point to the curve that increases the contrast and also has a nice side effect of boosting the saturation a little bit. If I turn this off and on, you can clearly see how we have actually increased the saturation of the grass just by selecting a slightly more saturated and warmer color. This simple but very important setting can be also used for the areas we want to darken. As a general rule, shadows are always going to be a little bit cooler than highlights. And as you can see, just by dodging that, just a little bit of dodging and burning, we start to add more dimension to the shot. Another very common mistake is not considering the direction and intensity of the light in the scene, which can result in conflicting shadows and highlights that appear unnatural and actually disrupt the visual coherence of the image. Take a look at this image, for example. I've seen a lot like this, and you can instantly tell there is something off with the relationship between the shadows and the highlights. The shadows are unnaturally bright, which makes the image look absolutely fake. Plus, we are not guiding the viewer's eye effectively through the image. A lot of times, especially with a shot like this, if I'm not following a specific guide, I make sure to zoom out so I can see the whole photo. It's easy to overdo it, so I want to see the entire image as I work. In fact, I spend most of the time when dodging and burning with the image zoomed at about 33% or even smaller. This way I can monitor the effect on the whole photo. When I'm zoomed in at 100%, it's hard to tell if I'm overdoing something or not doing enough. I just want to get a sense of the overall effect of the entire photo. Dodging and burning should enhance the image's tonality, not disrupt it. A common mistake is focusing too much on individual elements without considering the overall balance of light and shadows. Another simple technique I really enjoy is starting with a fairly dark photo and then dodge out the highlights following the existing light. This way I begin with a dark canvas and selectively bring out the highlights, drawing the viewer's eye to where I want it to go. We're going to darken it down a little bit. Keeping an eye on the histogram, I want to retain all the shadow details. Next, we are going to sample some of the warm color and add a touch of saturation. Our curve is already set up, as we have seen previously. Then I'm just going to go through and start adding highlights where they look natural and guide the eye effectively. An advanced technique that can refine and tighten up our dodge and burn adjustments further is using the luminance range tool. For example, here I painted freehand with the brush tool, and part of our adjustment spilled over the shadows area a bit. We can exclude those shadow areas taking advantage of the luminance range tool, which is one of the most powerful features in Lightroom when it comes to targeting specific areas based on daily brightness value. So what we need to do is click on the three dots here on the dodge layer we want to modify, select intersect mask with, and then choose luminance range. By doing so, we can now target only the bright areas by adjusting the left handle here and dragging it to the right until we have filtered out the shadow area we don't want to include in our selection. Like this. Here is the before, here is the after. Before and after. Of course, all the concepts we have seen in this video can be applied to any of the local adjustments tools such as the graduated and the radio filter and so on. Alright, I hope you found the video useful. Leave a comment, hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.